My name's Stephen McArdle, as Stephen just announced. I live in Belfast in Northern Ireland. I've worked on the IT side of effectively the construction and utility sector, mainly telecommunications, for around 20 years. And whilst I live and I'm based in Belfast, I've had a number of roles, probably like many on the call, that's required a great deal of travel, largely London, Dublin, but in the past I've worked also internationally on a variety of roles. So type of things I've done in the past have been things like running operational teams, running large CapEx budgets, introducing new products to the market, particularly what you'll know is ultra-fast broadband and fiber to the premises. But I'd really say my core discipline, Stephen and everyone, is kind of project and program management. I used to be quite technical, but as you move up a management chain, you kind of move away from the technology and become de-skilled. So the last 5 years has been really, focused on large-scale business transformation. And really, my role has been to drive efficiency into the engineering delivery of the utility sector and telecommunications. So that's really about me, and that's my discipline. In terms of KN and the slide's a little misreading. It's KN Group. We are now KN Circet as an organisation, and we have a large and growing business in the UK and Ireland. 3,500 direct employees, but that's actually supplemented by upwards of another 2,000 subcontracted employees, and that's in the UK, Ireland, and the Caribbean. Basically, we have guys and girls out there every day digging holes, putting up poles, pulling and connecting fibers for telecommunication networks so that all our customers can get what they really want, which is an ultra-fast internet connection delivered to them. That the Circet part of our business, Stephen, is really a couple of years ago we merged and were effectively bought over by a French counterpart, and we're now part of the wider group, which has a turnover of approximately about 1.5 billion and growing, with organizations in France, Germany, Spain, and more. So the business is big, getting bigger. As many of you will understand, the demand for ultra-fast broadband throughout the world is a pretty robust and thriving industry to be in, and we're very much part of that. So our major customers would be major telcos in the UK, like Openreach in Ireland, Air in France, Orange, and others throughout the world. But the position we're part of as part of the group is we are effectively the biggest builder of telecommunications networks for these organizations in Europe, and that has moved us significantly from a relatively business to a growing and thriving one. Hope that's enough as an introduction.
No, that's great. That's great. So again, great stuff. Going back to our conversation earlier this week, give us an idea of sort of what problems you guys were trying to solve, and sort of what led you to sort of virtual assistant, computer vision AI, and ultimately led you to TechSee.
Yeah. So I think a key part of, I've been delivering my current role for just over 2 years now. Part of my strategy and our strategy as a business is a fully automated paperless engineering workflow where every transaction that we deliver is logged, recorded, where every interaction we have with the delivery of our customer networks is evidence-based. And we have a couple of fundamentals in doing that, Stephen. I mean, top of all fundamentals is we need to ensure that everybody arrives safely where they're supposed to be and comes home safely at the end of the day. We have standard processes and practices to do that, but any toolkit that we can put in our armory to allow that to be more robust, to be even more enhanced than what the norm would be, that's effectively a key part of what we're trying to do and trying to implement as part of it. So that what we were looking at is our solutions to try and deliver rich conversations between a dispersed workforce that's operating in the field and a number of office-based or roving kind of supervisory type management community. And there's many ways you can do that. You can do that with lots and lots and lots and lots of people to cover lots and lots of geography, or you can have the resource that you have scaled to an appropriate level, supplemented by tooling that allows those conversations to happen. And that's where TechSee actually became the tool of choice after a high degree of assessment of other tools in the market.
Yeah, that's great. I want to bring back a point you just made where you were talking about integrating this into your workflow and also being able to have a rich session with the field reps. You may have encountered this in your research, but were you ever asked, like, well, why don't we just use WhatsApp, or why don't we just use FaceTime, for instance? And how did you sort of deal with that?
So absolutely, we were asked those questions, and absolutely there was sporadic use of those tools, regardless of any strategy coming from me or my team. So the point made after assessment was there's a number of things we need to focus on. First and foremost, the kind of robustness and the kind of security of the tooling itself. If it's going to be strategic to our business, it has to be something that meets those standards. So that's a checkpoint number one. Checkpoint number two is, and I go back to the point I made about digital evidence. In order to record an interaction on a piece of work, the only way to record it via those other applications, well, actually, there is no real way of recording those interactions, but the only way to properly record it against the jobs we're working on is to integrate the tooling into our workflow. So just to give the people on the call a picture, when our desk agents want to initiate a call to the field using the platform, they do not go to TechSee. They go to our engineering workflow back office application. They click a button, then initiate the session to site. It automatically populates the contact number, sends the text, initiates the call, and records that interaction and what was agreed within that interaction against the job. Therefore, it's there forever in the day as a digital record against the job, and that's the fundamental difference between the kind of FaceTime type tooling.
Right
here.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. You did touch on safety, so I won't bring that up again, but give us a sense of sort of a real life example of your team using the technology.
Sure. I think there's a couple that spring immediately to mind, but I'll give you a particular issue we were having. Not all engineering delivery goes as smoothly as we plan it to go on paper. So we had an issue with a particular geography in England where the engineering delivery was substandard according to both our client and the local authorities and councils for that area. Okay, the risk to us reputationally and cost wise was pretty severe, and we had to take action. So one of the key things that our people were doing on site was effectively digging up roads, delivering our engineering services, but the issue in question was the repair and reinstatement of those solutions, pieces, so that when we go away from it, it's as if we haven't been there. It was very much substandard and under par. So what we initiated was a get well plan, and a core part of the get well plan was that before a crew completed a job or a reinstatement and it was signed off, it had to be fully signed off and visually checked, whether that was direct eyes and ears on site, which had happened in about 20% of the cases, or about 80% of the cases using TechSee as a solution to do that and record it. The quality of that fix plan was challenged by the customer, was checked afterwards and was fully signed off, and the digital evidence proved that a quality job was done. And in fact, the behavior of the engineering team on site has markedly improved since. So we don't have the problem, but that's a kind of a very practical example of how we use the tooling to avoid to fix problems that are there, but avoid them moving forward.
That's great. That's great. That's an awesome story. Would obviously love to hear it. You talked about one thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was sort of the adoption amongst the team. Obviously, the tool is integrated into your workflow. So you talked about the agent being able to be in the tool they're already in, click on TechSee. Was there any resistance to utilizing the tool? If so, sort of how did you guys overcome that? And did the integration sort of overcome that challenge?
So there's probably a couple of pieces to talk about that. The integration into our tooling, I described we have a fully paperless engineering workflow. We also control all of the development in-house for that. That was a very core part of our strategy. So actually, we're pretty used to integrating stuff into our workflow. The integration part of it was actually quite seamless. So as a method between our teams working in partnership, that worked really well. The biggest challenge we have in adopting it is actually people behaviors. So the community that we're targeting are desk-based people who would be used to having reactive interactions with people who are in the field. So calls come in to them. What we're now asking them to do is proactively make those calls out. So actually they're having a different type of interaction and different type of call, and they're actually having it visually as well. So actually the challenge was in the culture of that interaction and adoption. The second group of people was the kind of mobile management and surveyors who actually really like the kind of flexibility, the autonomy, the power they have of being able to drive around the different sites, and that's their little kind of empire. We're now saying to them, have different interactions. So we don't need to prove that the tooling works. What we need to do is prove, unearth, and probably challenge some of the people behaviors and the interactions between those communities. And that's where I suppose if I'm looking at what I'm trying to do with my business, I am not about doing technology for technology's sake. I probably won't be the first to implement the fad. I want it proven that the technology works, and then we challenge the interactions. And in this case, what we've found is after a degree of kind of leadership and support within the teams themselves, a degree of push and sponsorship, after a number of the interactions, the people culture changes. So the calls start to be made, the interactions start to be made. The crews on the ground get used to someone calling them and wanting to visually check what they have at all times. Those cultural items change. And from that perspective, it's starting, we started small number of licenses, we moved up, we're starting to go kind of enterprise-wide on it. The other aspect that is really important to me in terms of the rollout of technology is the overhead and training aspect of it for the masses. And I obviously I haven't seen the demo you're going to present, but one of the challenges I faced was, we can't use this, we need everybody trained. Training to me in the end took 10 or 15 minutes. You get a text, you click a link, you click accept, we're going, that is, that's simple. You pretty much show up. So that's where that was the balance between the technology being integrated fairly seamlessly through the teams, the training aspect being minimal. The thing we had to address was the cultural aspects of those discussions between the communities, and that's probably the human side of all of the IT implementation. That's probably more important.
No, that's great. I love hearing it. What sort of tips would you have for, let's say, organizations that are out there, maybe even people on the call that are assessing this technology, sort of things that you ran into along the way?
So when I suppose I mentioned the integration, we didn't start with an integrated solution. We started with using the TechSee platform autonomously from our core workflow. Once we got some adoption, what we ended up with was a set of records and a data set and a set of interactions that were completely detached from the jobs that we did. So going back to my point earlier, it is vital, certainly for me, to integrate the action from the desk guys to the field on the jobs that they're speaking about, to the engineering workflow. Therefore, you keep a complete digital record of the job. That's so the integration of it into your in-house workflow is pretty crucial. So, like I say, I don't want my guys having a branded TechSee, right? They have a visual session with the team using tool in the background.
Awesome.
So that's probably one of the big things for us. The other thing I would advise is the danger becomes a very much, and perhaps I've discussed it that way. It becomes a problem-based kind of solution. So I'm checking on something. I want to see what you've done. Almost like a Big Brother approach. What it balanced with is very much, and you covered it in your presentation. Very much the kind of the support to the technician in the field when the technician is running into problems. Can they have help and support to do that job? Because all of our guys and girls every day, no one's getting out of bed to do a bad job. They all want to do a good job. So this is a help and support to them. The other thing, and I suppose the evolution of that, is identifying some sort of reward and recognition around a good job. So it doesn't become a kind of a punitive checking on teams and individuals. It becomes a support to the field teams and a means of demonstrating great quality work. So that balance is so they would be the two main ones. And the other thing for me is actually selling it to the clients that we deal with. So one of the things that I'm very keen on moving to the next step is ensuring that when our clients need to see or we would want them to see some of the things out on site, using our tooling to be able to do that, rather than what tends to be an email based chain of activity, days and weeks to
and that kind of segues here. I want to be conscious of your time, and I want to hand it over to Aviv here in a second for the demo. Last question, 1 minute. What is the future sort of plans of KN and sort of your use of this tool?
So I think we have a fairly modest use of the capability that you described in your presentations. So, where we want to get to is kind of like the visual journeys piece, presenting those tables out there. We have over 5,000 engineering jobs being completed every day. All of those engineering jobs are generally, 90% of them are in categories that are relatively standard. Why can't we proactively give the help and support and use some of the advanced tooling that you guys are using elsewhere? Those teams. At the minute, we are delivering visual checks, inspections, support to the technicians. Time now for us to move it into the visual journeys, and that's the strategy.